If there is anyone out there who still doubts that America is a place where all things are possible, who still wonders if the dream of our founders is alive in our time, who still questions the power of our democracy, tonight is your answer.
Senator, first of all, thank you for honoring the wishes of the people and not taking lobbyist money.
Absolutely, I appreciate that.
And they keep on saying, oh, just 4 more years of George Bush, and then we'll get a Democrat in there. Oh, now it's just 4 more years of Barack Obama, and it'll all get better, but it never does.
I will promise you this, that if we have not gotten our troops out by the time I am president, it is the first thing I will do. I will get our troops home. We will bring an end to this war.
President Obama has unveiled the Department of Defense's new budget. Among the military splurges, nearly $3 billion for a war we're supposedly not fighting.
So conventional wisdom is that President Obama delivered on his campaign promise, because that's what the administration is putting out, so CNN regurgitates that. But they made a turn, and I'm waiting for them to make the real turn. The real turn is what we've been reporting for months here, which is that we were actually desperate to stay. How many stories did I show you where we were quoting administration officials like Leon Panetta, the Secretary of Defense, saying, oh, I wish the Iraqi government would just let us stay. By the way, the other part of that that's incredibly important is that President Bush is the one who signed that agreement. It was not President Obama. So it was President Bush who said that we have to leave by the end of 2011. Keep that in mind. So there's really nothing to take credit for here.
He was somber, almost still behind the desk in the Oval Office, where he noted it all began.
From this desk, 7.5 years ago, President Bush announced the beginning of military operations in Iraq.
That night was filled with the shock and awe of American military might. But history has its own deep secrets. And so all these years later, President Obama declared this historic milestone.
Tonight, I am announcing that the American combat mission in Iraq has ended.
So I thought that's the CNN was going to go in that direction and go say, hey, wait a minute. Now, to be fair, President Obama didn't want to leave Iraq. And in fact, he wanted to violate an agreement or make a new agreement of President Bush, who said we should leave by 2011. And by the way, you think we're leaving? You think we're leaving? You know what we're doing? We are leaving an estimated 16,000 civilians under the American ambassador. Now, some of those are diplomats, but a great majority of those are private contractors. So we're leaving only 150 troops, technically, to protect the embassy, which is perfectly reasonable. But we're leaving, you know, these tens of thousands of contractors that were there in the first place.
I will provide our intelligence and law enforcement agencies with the tools they need to track and take out the terrorists without undermining our Constitution and our freedom. That means no more illegal wiretapping of American citizens. No more national security letters to spy on citizens who are not suspected of a crime. No more tracking citizens who do nothing more than protest a misguided war. No more ignoring the law when it is inconvenient. That is not who we are.
I would like you to revamp the bureaucracy of this country. I, for one, along with all of my neighbors and friends, have never let a terrorist into this country. We are tired of being pushed into fear by our government. We are tired of having our rights taken away from us by our government. And I am saying to you that if you will do us this favor, my country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. I want my freedom back.
Okay, well,
But we begin tonight with a tale of 2 speeches, both from the same man, both from President Obama. One speech that could have been billed as a ballad to the Constitution, a proclamation of American values, a repudiation of the lawless behavior of the last presidential administration, and another speech announcing a radical new claim of presidential power that is not afforded by the Constitution and that has never been attempted in American history, even by George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. Remarkably, President Obama today made both of those speeches simultaneously. Standing inside the National Archives in front of the actual original Constitution, President Obama delivered a blistering critique of the Bush administration, in which he called their actions and their legacy literally a mess.
Our government made a series of hasty decisions. Poorly planned, haphazard approach. Too often, we set those principles aside as luxuries that we could no longer afford. Our government made decisions based on fear rather than foresight. The decisions that were made over the last 8 years established an ad hoc legal approach for fighting terrorism that was neither effective nor sustainable.
An ad hoc legal approach for fighting terrorism that was neither effective nor sustainable. Ouch. Then, moments later, he announced his own ad hoc legal approach for fighting terrorism. President Obama today proposed something new, something called prolonged detention.
Guantanamo, that's easy. Close down Guantanamo, restore habeas corpus. We're going to lead by shutting down Guantanamo and restoring habeas corpus. I intend to close Guantanamo, and I will follow through on that. Guantanamo will be closed.
That flag represents rule of law and due process, and that's why we're going to close Guantanamo and restore habeas corpus.
The National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, as it's called, allows the government to detain and torture without trial anyone accused of having ties to terrorism, and that includes U.S. citizens.
We will incarcerate people preventively, preventive incarceration, indefinite detention without trial. That's what this is.
Future freedom is not good, Jacob, if the president thinks he can kill anybody he wants. Was this lawful or constitutional by any known accepted standard of law and the Constitution?
Absolutely not. It was nothing but state-sanctioned murder. That, you know, the government, the president has made some unsubstantiated assertions about what this man was doing. He's claiming that it was legal to assassinate this guy. But, Judge, as you well know, that's what a trial is all about. A trial determines what are the facts in the case. What has this man actually done? Has he exercised freedom of speech? Has he crossed the line into an area of illegality? That's what a jury determines. And then based on that determination, the judge decides whether it's proper to punish this guy under the law. Obama and his forces circumvent that entire process and just take the guy out, saying we don't need no stinking trial, we're just going to kill him.
We are dropping bombs on crowded cities at night where old people and children are sleeping. And we're watching it on CNN. And the only voice that's spoken up at all in this campaign about this is Ron Paul. Why are we so interventionist, he wants to know? What are we doing with all these wars? How are we safer? These are very common sense observations, and no other candidate can possibly speak those words. It would be, they believe, politically fatal.
I want everybody to understand, you know, I taught constitutional law for 10 years. I take the Constitution very seriously.
What if elections don't matter? What if elections were actually useful tools for social control? What if they just provided the populace with meaningless participation in a process that validates an establishment that never meaningfully changes? What if that establishment doesn't want and doesn't have the consent of the governed? What if George W. Bush campaigned on a platform of non-intervention and small government, and then waged a foreign policy of muscular military intervention and a domestic policy of vast government borrowing and growth?
I think what we need to do is convince people who live in the lands they live in to build the nations. Maybe I'm missing something here. We're going to have kind of a nation-building corps from America? Absolutely not. Our military is meant to fight and win war. That's what it's meant to do. And when it gets overextended, morale drops. But I'm going to be judicious as to how to use the military. It needs to be in our vital interest, the mission needs to be clear, and the exit strategy obvious. I think what we need to do is convince people who live in the lands they live in to build the nations.
What if Mitt Romney is being embraced by voters who want anyone but Barack Obama? But they don't realize that Mitt Romney might as well be Barack Obama on everything from warfare to welfare.
We decided we wanted to get everybody insured. We've done that. I understand that the president considers his plan in some respects following the model of Massachusetts. Let's learn from our experience.
In fact, I agree with Mitt Romney, who recently said he's proud of what he accomplished on health care.
What kind of job is Ben Bernanke doing right now? The guy's depreciating the dollar. We're seeing this huge inflation of energy prices, including gasoline prices at the pump. What do you think of Ben Bernanke?
Well, you know, I think Ben Bernanke is a student of monetary policy. He's doing as good a job as he thinks he can do in the Federal Reserve. But look, I'm not going to spend my time going after Ben Bernanke. I'm not going to take my effort and focus on the Federal Reserve. I think there is need for economic stimulus. I think it was the right action to take. I know a lot of my fellow conservatives aren't happy with me that I supported the plan. I don't call it a bailout. I call it a rescue plan.
Can a man who essentially agrees with President Obama on all the key issues realistically become the Republican nominee for president?
A nuclear Iran is not only a problem for Israel. It's a problem for America, and it's a problem for the world.
The regime is more isolated than ever before.
In the Gulf, Iran prepares to close the Strait of Hormuz to hold hostage 20% of the world's oil. In their nuclear laboratories, they prepare the means to hold hostage the entire planet.
Its leaders are faced with crippling sanctions. And as long as they shirk their responsibilities, this pressure will not relent.
I would make sure that their diplomats are rejected and despised throughout the world. I'd also make sure that we have communicated our credible military options.
Let there be no doubt. America is determined to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, and I will take no options off the table to achieve that goal.
While we were on a Christmas break, the President of the United States of America violated his oath to uphold the Constitution by signing into law a statute that purports to give him the authority to use the military to arrest Americans on American soil and to confine those arrested to a jail in Cuba, away from judges, juries, and lawyers for as long as the president wants. This directly violates the Constitution's guarantee of due process, which requires a jury trial before the government can take anyone's life, liberty, or property.
Many, including Congressman Paul, have called this unconstitutional. At the same time, the bill did provide money to continue funding U.S. troops. Governor Romney, as president, would you have signed the National Defense Act as written?
Yes, I would have, and I do believe that it's appropriate.
All Republican candidates for their party's nomination, except Ron Paul, supported.
Let's talk about Wall Street donations for President Obama. Now, he has gotten, of course, a ton of money in the past. In fact, Goldman Sachs was his top donor in 2008. And, you know, a lot of the donations this time around are going to Mitt Romney. Goldman Sachs is now the top donor to Mitt Romney's campaign. So they've switched sides entirely. But the question is, why are the bankers so angry at President Obama? Yes, he called them fat cats once, but has he done anything to do prosecutions, lower their pay, keep them in check in any way, shape, or form? And honestly, the answer is he's done almost nothing. So, of course, the banks are like, hey, you know what? Obama was fantastic to us, but this Mitt Romney guy might be even better. Yes, we're in.
Mitt Romney is obviously the choice of the Republican establishment. Those are the folks who brought us TARP and stimulus, wars fought on credit cards, federal agents writing their own search warrants, and the federal government taking over education. Mitt Romney believes in all these things, but here's the crusher. So does President Obama. There's not a dime's worth of difference between them. Name the topic on which the president has a real say, and they agree. Can the government mandate health care? Yes, from both. Should income taxes stay where they are on those who pay the most? Yes, from both. Can the president start a war on his own without a declaration of war from the Congress? Yes, from both. Can the president kill any American he wants? Incredibly, yes, from both.
You know, in some ways they say, well, why don't you give up and this will help the Republican Party? The truth is, I'm trying to save the Republican Party from themselves because they want perpetual wars. They don't care about presidents who assassinate American citizens. They don't care about searching our houses without search warrants. And these are the kind of things that people care about.
So, on the points, Ron Paul is only 1,000,000% right. And if you're a real conservative, you would never be in favor of shredding the Constitution so that we execute American citizens abroad without a trial, without due process. You would never be in favor of warrantless searches. I mean, this is big government encroaching on your individual freedoms. He's 100% right that should be the conservative position. He's also 100% right that is not the current Republican position.
He isn't worried about the Federal Reserve. He isn't worried about the foreign policy.
And here again, you know, Ron Paul is devastatingly right. He has so little in common with Mitt Romney. In fact, Mitt Romney and President Obama are much closer in their positions than Mitt Romney and Ron Paul. Because President Obama is in favor of the endless wars, generally speaking. Now Romney is more in favor of them. He would have stayed in Iraq. He'd want to stay in Afghanistan a little longer than President Obama. But all the executive power they 100% agree on. Of course, the Constitution is irrelevant. Execute anyone you like, you know, and take away all the due process and the warrantless warrants. All that stuff Romney, Obama totally agree on.
Give them credit for one thing. You have to give them credit. They're out in the open now. They're out in the open now. They're not even trying to conceal it anymore. The owners of the country they got their election. They said, we're going to get this election. We put you people in that court for a reason.
All right,
now's
back
the time
to
pay
earth
us.
for you now.
Yeah, forget all that stupid. Will you? They're out in the open. They're openly driving the bus, and we're all in the back.
Because of the energy policies that were created here in California, not as a result of a conspiracy, but because...
You don't need a formal conspiracy. Right. When interests converge, these people went to the same universities and fraternities. They're on the same boards of directors. They're in the same country clubs. They have like interests. They don't need to call a meeting. They know what's good for them, and they're getting it. And there used to be 7 oil companies. There are now 3. It will soon be 2. The things that matter in this country have been reduced in choice. There are 2 political parties. There are a handful of insurance companies. There are about 6 or 7 information things. But if you want a bagel, there are 23 flavors because you have the illusion. You have the illusion of choice. Right. You don't get the real important choice. There's no freedom of choice.
I have 2 words for you. Predator drones. You will never see it coming. You think I'm joking?
What if Ron Paul is being ignored by the media, not because, as it claims, he's unappealing or unelectable, but because he doesn't fit into the pre-manufactured public opinion mold used by the establishment to pigeonhole the electorate and create the so-called narrative that drives media coverage of elections? What if the biggest difference between most candidates was not substance, but style? What if those stylistic differences were packaged as substantive ones to reinforce the illusion of a difference between Democrats and Republicans? What if Mitt Romney wins and ends up continuing most of the same policies that Barack Obama promoted? What if Barack Obama's policies, too, are merely extensions of those from George W. Bush?
This nation is daring and decent and ready for change.
Because of what we did on this day, in this election, at this defining moment, change has come to America.
What if a government that manipulated us could be fired? What if a government that lacked the true and knowing consent of the governed could be dismissed? What if it were possible to have a real game changer? What if we need a Ron Paul to preserve and protect our freedoms from the government? What if we could make elections matter again? What if we could do something about this?
Yes, we can.